Hey, welcome back, Rankers. How you going? Thank you for all the interesting comments on last week's show. If you didn't see it, not many people did because it had some information on there that would have triggered a few YouTube bits and pieces. And so its distribution, let's just say, was less than usual, a lot less. But it was fascinating. So I won't do one of those again. I'll post it somewhere else. Maybe I'll do it on X, formerly known as Twitter. When can I stop saying that? But yeah, it was a showcase of Google's Notebook LM and another tool that I've been building to query Google search trends. And that's a really fascinating journey I've been on with that. And that's showing me a lot of stuff. And I've got another tool that we've been building as well. And it's all centered around this topic I'm going to talk to you about today. I spoke about it in Melbourne at the meetup Dazed and Diffused. If you are in, I think they're running it in New Zealand now, in Auckland. I think they've at least had one. Certainly in Sydney, and I think may have done one in Brisbane as well. Dazed and Diffused, organised by Tim O'Neill and Yash Farmer. Go along and get to that if you're interested in anything to do with generative AI. A lot of really interesting people to talk to there and some great presentations as well. I was fortunate enough to be asked to give one last week, and it was around this topic, SEO for LLMs. SEO for LLMs. Not really SEO, but it's the question we're all asking, right? It's the question of, we know we're using these tools more and more. And look, to give you an example of this, all we have to do is go to Google Trends and do this search: Stack Overflow Python. I've got heaps of other searches like this, and you can see here this is January 2023. It just drops off a cliff, and that's because people aren't going to Stack Overflow anymore for their questions about Python. They're going to tools like ChatGPT, to Claude, to Grok, to Gemini, maybe. I don't know. I've got something to say about Gemini. I might save it for another show because I still need to do some more digging about what I'm seeing there. But Google is being affected. There are people in the digital marketing community that want to say, no, it's not. And there are studies out there that say, no, Google search isn't being affected. It is. I don't care what study you read. You just need to look at the anecdotal evidence of people that you talk to. You just talk to people online and what they're finding. And most of them who are using generative AI are saying, tools like ChatGPT and all the others, are saying they're using it for things that they used to use Google for, which makes sense. Now, this represents a massive drop in Google traffic, right? So it does represent a drop in Google Ads revenue. Maybe there's more revenue coming in from elsewhere that's going to offset that, perhaps. I don't know. But the landscape has definitely changed for Google. Now, I'm not saying for one moment that, Google's in trouble, but I think its search business is getting challenged like it has never been challenged before by anything. Not any other search engine, not DuckDuckGo, not Bing, not Ecosia, which I have been known to use quite a bit over the last few years. But it is having a threat now with people using these generative AI tools to find information. So when we start talking about this, we start to think about, well, what's going to happen to my business if people start using these tools? Are they still going to find my business in these tools? Well, it's a state of flux at the moment. I'll be running a webinar on this in October. So stay tuned to this channel and we'll be talking about those sorts of things, as well as just some of the general things you should be doing in the preparation for the silly season anyway, to do with Google and other search engines. But what we're finding is that a lot of the best practice stuff that we do for SEO works well with the LLMs. Now, there's some exceptions to that. But I want to start by explaining, why these are different and why you need to start thinking about, if you're not already, thinking about your content, your site, how you connect with your customers differently to what, say, the last 25 years of SEO has been for most of the people out there. Exceptions out there. But for us, we've been doing a lot of this stuff for the last 10 years. And we're finding it makes a lot of sense for the large language models as well. And one of the reasons that we did this, ironically, is because when RankBrain came out in 2015, which was the first implementation of AI in the Google search algorithm, we started to notice that a lot of the tricks that we tried to employ in the past were getting harder and harder to make work. And it just became obvious to us that it was costing us more, or costing the client more, for us to achieve those rankings through all the jiggery pokery that we had to do with the Google algorithm. And it wasn't really giving the client the return, especially when we start working with e-commerce clients. It just wasn't giving them the return that they would expect to see from spending all that time and effort in getting, say, outdoor timber ceiling fan with remote control and light ranked #1. How long did that take? So there's things like that where you just go, what's the opportunity and what's the actual cost of getting there, and am I going to get the return? And the thing is with these large language models, and this is a screenshot from Bard, and obviously Bard's no longer with us, rest in peace. Gemini doesn't do this, right? And I think there was a big reveal here with Bard when it opened up last year. And that is that, I did a search, where's the best place to buy wholesale paper bags in Australia? And it came back and it gave me those results there. And it put this result last. Now, QIS Packaging is a wonderful company. Go and buy all your packaging from QIS. I buy my packaging from QIS. You should too, especially if you're in e-commerce. Great deals at the moment. Not sponsoring this podcast, but they are a client. And yeah, we ranked #1 for a variety of phrases around those searches. And, the guys are paying a fair amount to, for the ads to appear for those sorts of queries. But Bard put us down there. And it's like, well, why did you put us down there? And the reason that it put us down there is because what I noticed when it gave me those results was the free shipping threshold seemed to be the deciding factor. The #1 result it gave me was the one with the lowest free shipping threshold. So this to me was an example of how large language models were doing something that Google search has never done. It's taking into account, you might say, oh, well, Google likes to know if you've got free shipping. Yeah, maybe for ads, but organic, it's never been a real thing. You might sort of have a bit of an inkling that's probably a good thing to do, but it's never been a rock hard focus or a steady focus to get rankings, right? Certainly it has been for conversions, which I will get into, but not for rankings. And that's what this was doing. And if it was, we wouldn't rank #1 for that phrase, right? These guys would. They didn't. We did. So, Bard said, yeah, that's why I put them in that order. Now, as I say, Gemini's not the same. In fact, Gemini is encouraging me to go and do an online search to find, you couldn't do that search today. It would tell you to go and do an online search. You wouldn't get that result from Gemini. So some of the other things that we're finding that work well, obviously with old school SEO, will still work well with large language models. Schema markup makes a lot of sense, right? Because schema markup gives us structure about the content. It helps the large language model understand what the content's about. And it puts it in a nice format that it can understand. And some of them may be using that, say in the case of Search GPT, possibly in the case of certainly Perplexity, they'll be using those schema markup details to format the content as it comes in, right? Prices, all that sort of stuff. Alt tags and heading tags still matter. It's still good document structure. Now, we've been doing these things for 25 years, the alt and heading tags. That's something I've always been red hot on, okay? Just ask any of my team. That's why I created Chrome extensions for these things. But I know there's a lot in the industry that just ignore them. And, God knows, the design community certainly ignores heading tags, and they do the most frustrating things imaginable and use them for styling instead of what they're designed to do, which is about good document structure. It helps us understand what the document is about. And what's really interesting too with large language models is that the alt tags are going to help them understand what the images are about. Look, they can grab the image and they can ingest it and look at it and work out what it's about, but it's going to cost compute time, right? So why make the model do that? Just use your alt tags for what they're designed to do and tell us. And it's an accessibility issue too. So if you've got people using screen readers, that sort of stuff, don't you want them as customers? Use the alt tags. Keep it simple is our main approach to all of this. You know, you want the accurate information. Don't go and do these horrible long form articles that go on forever. And this is one of the main reasons. Like, we've heard a lot of people talk about how bad Google results have become in recent times because of things like Reddit at the top of the search results. And I get all that. But what was worse than, say, Reddit results, I would argue, was long form articles where I had to scroll through pages or reams of text, past all the pop-ups, past all the ads from these third-party publishers that were simply, surviving on Google traffic, it seemed at the time, to get AdSense revenue. And that's the other thing with all of this. All of these people going off to ChatGPT that used to look at all these blogs and these long-form articles for their answers, Google's not getting that revenue from AdSense anymore, right? Nor the publishers, obviously. But those articles were horrible because from a search point of view, because you click on one link, maybe the top one, if it met what you thought it was going to tell you, and you scroll through the article and you wouldn't have the answer. So you'd have to hit the back button and go to the next one and the next one. Of course, large language models get beyond all of that. FAQs, important for Google, important for your users. If you don't know what your FAQs are, speak to your sales force, speak to your customer service team. They'll know what they are. It's a great format because we're asking, I don't know about you, let me know if this is the case with you, but for me, I'm finding that I'm asking more long form questions with the large language models because I find if I spend that time, that little bit of extra time, I get a much better response. Now, some people are saying, oh yeah, but Google's so much faster. It is, at delivering crap results would be my response to that, as I've just outlined. But, I'm not going to be able to do a long question into Google and get any sort of result that I'm going to get out of a large language model. So I'd rather spend that time, put a bit of extra work into my question, in my prompt, and get a really, really good response. User-generated content is going to be a big thing. I'm not seeing anyone talk about this. I've seen a lot of people talk about tricks and all that sort of stuff and gaming the large language models, but user-generated content is so important. I want you to start thinking, because this is what we're doing. We're thinking about the large language models as being our search assistants, right? We're gearing up for the universal search agent, which we're all going to have, our own personal search agent. And we'll get into that in a later episode and maybe even in the webinar. But reviews are more important than ever. We're doubling down on that. So Yotpo, Judge Me, Trustpilot, well done, guys. You're in a really good space. But also, just having them on your site in clear text. At the moment, as far as we can tell, the large language models aren't doing any qualification around if these reviews are real in any shape or form. So there could be some opportunity in the short term, and I'm not encouraging you to use fake reviews. Please don't do that. I think it's actually against the law in Australia. We've got a lot of laws. But don't do that. It's not genuine. You want to do it for your customers, right? But you can actually put them in clear text on your web page, and these large language models, and I'm talking mainly at the moment Search GPT, possibly Copilot. I'm hearing a lot of bad things about people who have spent the money on Copilot and aren't very happy. I think that's going to change. It'll have to change. They're Microsoft. Come on. But anything that's got internet access is going to look at these. And certainly some of the other models, the one I use a lot is Sonnet 3.5 at Claude from Anthropic. I use that a lot, but it doesn't have internet access, so it does have cutoff dates. But you want to generate that chatter also in the venue where your users are. So if your users are on Meta and you're doing a lot of ads on Meta, you might want to consider actually start getting back into the organic content. because that chat, as we now know, if you didn't before, is being used as training data for Llama. And of course, Llama is an open source model, so it's going to be used in a whole lot of other venues. Grok on X is another one. You know, they're training on the data there, so make sure you're getting chatter on that platform. Of course, know your customers. Use buyer personas. We've talked about our custom GPT before. Just Google custom GPT Stuart Media to find them. You won't find them yet in well, you can just search for buyer persona GPT in ChatGPT, of course. And remember, think of these things as your search representative, and they are looking for the answers. Reduce your whole token load, right? Obviously, reduce load times, cognitive load, things like that, as we've talked about before with SEO. But with the large language models, you've got to reduce the whole amount of information that they have to get through. So reduce the size of your of your HTML. All right, make it simpler. I know that can be very difficult depending on what content management system you're on, but give it a go. Hopefully that's helpful. Let me know what you think. Hopefully this one will get more views than the last one. And please follow me on Twitter, X, formerly known as Twitter, and also on LinkedIn if you're there. I'm posting exclusively, mainly on those platforms. Sorry, everybody on Facebook. I'll get back to you when I can. Please like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks very much. Bye.